My goodness, Langrisser CN has been going crazy lately with all these characters being released, and you guys might be wondering, how? How do they keep on getting crazier than they are now? I don't even know it myself. And Global is getting to the point where the characters in the future is worth grabbing as soon as we started this Jinsama collab. So you definitely want to save up as much as you can for the upcoming characters to be released. There are going to be so many that are incredible that you want to pull for, like Adon Camo, Lightbringer, and Neo Zerida. So the first character that we're going to talk about that CN is going to get by the time of this recording is going to be Grunhind. In CN, her name is actually Glenhill, but for Global, I think her name is actually translated to Grunhind. So that's what I'm going to go by. And I've been waiting for the day that she finally becomes playable, because this character looks really cool. Her talent allows her attack and defense to be increased whenever she fights an enemy with movement that's less than hers. And I'm pretty sure that's the case, because some of the times they are translated a little bit weird. So I'm pretty sure it's when her mobility is higher than an enemy will her attack and defense be increased. Whenever she ends her turn in the danger zone, she receives a buff called Frost Shelter that makes her immune to all debuffs, and when attacked into battle, she gains a command effect that reduces the mobility of the enemy by 2 for 1 turn, only if they're within 1 block of her. This also gives her a shield that's correspondent to her HP, and then decreases depending on her star level, which cannot be dispelled. When she loses her shield, you'll need to wait 2 turns at 3 or 4 stars, but at 5 or 6 stars, it's just 1 turn in order to get that back. And just note that she needs to be attacked in battle for this command effect to work. She has a 1C that has a 4-turn cooldown, which can be used to apply a cold shield terrain to any 3 blocks within range. It gives a command effect that increases the defense and magic defense to your team within 2 blocks of it by 10%. And it can even affect the enemies who are within 1 block of it that reduces the mobility by 2 for 1 turn. Afterwards, she can move 3 blocks to attack, and also buffs on her do not lose their turn duration. A pretty good act again skill. Her 2C is an AoE that has a 5-turn cooldown that attacks within 2 blocks, and reduces the enemy's mobility yet again by 2 for 2 turns. But if the enemy already has their mobility reduced, then there's a 20% chance that they won't be able to move on the next turn. Then afterwards, she gains block. Now for her 3C, this has a 5-turn cooldown. It has a passive where at the start of the battle, and when a strategy faction character kills an enemy, all characters in the strategy faction are buffed, and has a special buff effect where you deal 15% more damage when you fight enemies with them having their normal movement. That's what I'm assuming based on reading this, or it could be something like you having more mobility than the enemy, or if their mobility is already reduced. This is also an attacking skill that dispels 3 buffs before battle, and when attacking an enemy with movement not considered flying, then she will attack first. Afterwards, if the enemy survives, they won't be able to move, and they cannot guard, and also they receive 20% more increased damage that only lasts for 1 turn and cannot be dispelled. Alright, so it looks like her main gimmick is all about making your enemies cripple, which is pretty great for her when up against Thxs. Her talent is really amazing as well. Whenever she's in the danger zone, she gets a buff that makes her immune to all debuffs, which is just insane. And is able to get a shield as well? That's pretty good. But the only bad part about that is that she needs to be forced into battle in order to get it, which is pretty risky because of the possibility of being one-shotted. And the nice part about her classes is that her movement will be considered fine, for both of her classes by the way, so she won't really have trouble moving around places. Her 3C is amazing as well, very similar to Elwyn where you can just faction buff right off the bat, and a new strategy faction buffer at that as well. But the difference between her and Elwyn is that Grunhind will keep constantly using her faction buff whenever a strategy character kills an enemy, whereas compared to Elwyn, your teammate needs to die in order to buff up everyone again. But the thing about Elwyn's is that just anyone can die in order to faction buff. For Grunhind, she needs a specific character with her to make sure that she can do so. Unless she can do it herself, which doesn't exactly say, but I would assume so since it just says Strategy Master. Oh, and I forgot to mention that she's part of the Strategy, Princess, and Origin faction. In PvE, it's a little bit more tolerable, but for PvP, it may be hard to come by. The only characters that are really being used in PvP that's in the Strategy faction are someone like Ironblood Commander, Lostam, and Emperor Lovina. But you can honestly get away without it with her already increased attack from her talent. And the second part of her 3C is really great to shut down Thxs. And maybe, just maybe, she can be a great counter against Rushbox as well, since she can give so many mobility reduction. But the only thing that will hurt her a lot is if the enemy has something that prevents mobility reduction. And there's also the fact that she needs to be attacked in order for her to get that shield. which I will say again, there's a possibility of her being one-shotted. So overall, she's a really fantastic character that can give the enemy a hard time moving around, with just some obvious weaknesses, but she can hit really hard. The second character we got is Joan and Connor, the part of the Strategy, Empire, and Rebirth faction. And this is pretty interesting because we haven't gotten a design that's very similar to Gerald and Layla, but the way how these two characters work is much more cooler and simple. But spoiler ahead, they're kind of a letdown. Their talent increases their attack and crit chance, and at the start of the battle, you summon Joan, which is the dude by the way. And he inherits a certain percent of Connor's stats, depending on the star level. But the thing that's very unique about them is that Joan has his own talent and skills. So he's pretty much a separate character that can do his own thing. And so the way how Joan works is that his talent ignores enemy obstruction and has terrain masters. When in battle, his damage taken is reduced by 80%, and when Connor dies, the girl by the way, he kills himself, which is pretty sad to think about. His first skill will heal him, and he won't be targeted by no more attacks and skills when he activates it. At the end of the turn when using this, he applies 2 weakening debuffs that last for 2 turns within 3 blocks of him. His second skill is an AoE that's 4 blocks long, that reduces the enemy mobility by 2, and they can't guard for 2 turns. His third skill is a passive. When Connor and Joan actively attacks an enemy within 3 blocks, they will deal fixed damage. Not exactly sure how that works, but I want to take a guess and say that if Connor actively attacks an enemy, then Joan will deal fixed damage to that enemy, and the same thing applies the other way around. Or it could be like they both deal fixed damage at the same time, but I feel like that would be way too strong. Now back to Connor. Her 1C is a support skill that just gives both of them reinforcement and crit rate increase by 20%. For 2 turns, that has a 2-turn cooldown. Her 2C also has a 2-turn cooldown. It reaches 4 blocks long, and her soldiers will also attack with her. And then after battle, it silences the enemy. This skill is pretty much an upgraded version of the snipe skill. So yeah, kinda lame. Then finally, her 3C is an AoE line skill that has a 4-turn cooldown. It reaches 5 blocks long that gives the enemy -1 range for 1 turn that can dispel 2 buffs on them. But if Joan is in range of the skill, then it gets extended by 3 blocks wide and 5 blocks long. I know it's different from what it says right here, but going by the character trailer, you can trust me on that part. I really like their design. It's very similar to Gerald and Layla, but each of them do their own thing, whereas with Gerald and Layla, they're pretty much one single character. But like, I don't even know. They just don't seem all that exciting. Especially when you take a look at their skills, it's really lame, since there's not a lot of options that you would choose. And I like what they did with the 3C, reducing the enemy's range. It's a kind of debuff that we never see happen, and I wish there was more character like that. And the fact that it can extend the range even more with Joan is pretty cool. Some people may not like it because of the way that you have to position the characters, but the only reason I really like it is because that's really one of 2 things that I really like about this character. The other reason is that Joan actually feels like a separate character that can do his own thing. And it's a shame because they had a whole lot of potential to be such a unique character with a unique playstyle. They definitely should have taken more advantage of these 2 pairs and having their skills work with each other a whole lot more. Like I said though, people might not like it, but it was literally my first thought about this character, about how they would work. Alright, so moving on from the characters, there are 2 new soldiers. The first one is a flyer. If your movement is higher than the enemies, their attack and defense are increased by 30%, and if the hero class is a flyer, then their damage is reduced by 30% in battle. This one is definitely going to be worth upgrading, and I can see a lot of people using them. The second soldier is an archer. Yeah, you heard me right. An archer that uses a gun from the future. Their attack are increased by 30%, and by the way, their description are what it looks like when at max leveled. When actively attacking, if you or the enemy are on a defensive terrain, then they will ignore 50% of the enemy's defense. These guys are okay. Maybe on certain maps they'll have some shine, but there are definitely more better soldier options to use. We got of course 2 new exclusive equipment as always. First one we got is Azusa, which looks like a helmet. It gives 5% increase to your HP and defense during dual shell, which would be her twin elemental protection in global translation. Her skill damage increases by 10% when she is killed. If she has twin elemental protection, hard and soft, again I'm saying these all in global terms, she will use all of those in order for her to revive. That can only trigger 1 time in battle. A really good one I haven't seen in a while. Granted that she does need those 3 effects with her, but it's definitely worth it because it's really not easy trying to keep those active on her at all times. The second new exclusive equipment is for Werner that increases his defense by 10%. I'm pretty sure this one is a helmet as well. At the start of the battle, he goes into his strike stance, and when still in it, if he has not moved before actively attacking, then he gets that effect again. Another good one to immediately start killing things right away, especially in PvP where it'll be so much easier to rush with them. Both of these are really good, especially Azusa, because we all know how amazing reviving can be. For Werner, if you still really use him, then this one is definitely worth to pick up, even though the conditions of keeping strike stance is a bit annoying, since when you are in that stance, you would definitely want to move for the kill. But getting this just for the sole purpose of starting off in that strike stance can really make a difference for starting off in the battle. For the casting skills, there's just 4 new ones, and if you guys still don't know what they are pretty much extra passive skills that you can unlock from the new Secret Realm stage that will come during the Adon Kelmo and Lightbringer banner, which is very soon for us global players. The first one we got is Vargas, which will increase his defense by 5%. When he triggers his revive, he gets damage dealt increased by 15% that lasts for 1 turn and cannot be dispelled. Second is Lanford. His talent gives 10% increased crit damage, and when attacking in battle, you restore 20% of damage dealt as HP, only if you get a crit. The third one is for Lambda. That increases her int by 10%. All it does is that her toggle effect of her 3C lasts an extra turn. The fourth and final one is for Clarett. The higher her mobility is, the more her attack is increased up to a max of 12%, and she receives up to 20% less damage in battle. The translation on that second part is odd, I know, but I'm sure they wouldn't make it a double-edged sword when you unlock this. So more than likely, she would take less damage. If you guys still use Lanford, then you guys are in for a real something because it is stupid good. And I'm pretty sure it can even affect his teammates as well. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on this, but I could be wrong on this. But if I'm right, then it's 100% going to be very worth it. For everyone else, it's alright. Vargas is just okay. Lambda isn't really worth using the materials unless you just want that int increase. Clarett would be the second best to get if you still use her, but Lanford would be the best one to get in general, especially if you're one of those people that still use them. As for new content, the Forbidden Battleground, so if you're one of those people waiting for the Lewin and Norm SP stones, then you have to wait around like 4 to 5 months for this to come around in global. We also got the second rerun event for the Tower Defense game mode. I'm sure you guys know all about these type of stuff. You get buildings, you place them somewhere, upgrade them to be stronger, then you would have to defend a certain building in the middle, stop the enemies from entering and breaking it, and you can even use characters to help defend it as well. I'm not really into those type of stuff, and I could never get into the Bloons Tower Defense game. You guys know that game? I remember playing that game in school a few years ago, but I would always get bored of it just watching and doing nothing playing it. But some of you guys may be really into that kind of stuff. There's also this Conquest Tower game mode that will be coming back, so you basically have to defend your towers while also trying to destroy the other player's tower using characters and skill tactics. Besides the 2 new character banner, there's this heart tracing banner where it only has characters from Langrisser 1, 2, and 3, so you can select 2 characters for an increased drop rate. There's apparently going to be another banner similar to this one, but it has characters all the way up to Lostam and Ashmere. Really great for those who are missing someone or just need character bonds. As for new skins, we got the Echo of Light for Grunhind, and she looks really amazing. She looks really sick. Kinda reminds me of how the way Lanford Echo of Light looks in a way. I don't know, they just have the same concept design is all. The other Echo of Light is for Joan and Connor, and they look really nice as well. This one also reminds me of the way how Leanna looks, although I'm not sure what Joan is supposed to be, but all I know is that they look really nice. The next skins we got is for Epsilon, and this is his Season 14 champion skin, and now Season 15 should be happening soon for CN, during this time of recording that is. So like with every new season, there's gonna be some free ones. When you reach gold, you'll be able to get the Egbert skin, and when you reach silver, you get the skin for the fighting monks. And I really wish that they chose someone else other than Egbert, because there are other characters that don't have skins like at all. Someone like Melania. I probably butchered saying that name so bad, but she doesn't even have a skin like at all, yet her brother does. Last but not least, the Macho Lotto skin we got is for Michelle. A nice little Christmas themed one, although for us global players, by the time this one arrives, it'll be somewhere around springtime. And that's just about everything I have for you guys. I've been waiting for the day that Grunhind actually becomes playable, so once she drops, I'm definitely going to pull for her, and I wish that they could have made Joan and Connor a bit more better because I really like the design, and how they complement each other using the 3C, they definitely should have taken more advantage of that. But if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more, and feel free to let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this update that CN are getting. But yeah, thanks for watching. Your fellow Z.